from Accra, Ghana. So we are only semi-deprived, if you like, where we have him here for much in all aspects apart from the purely physical. So welcome everyone to the University of Buckingham, and those from outside, welcome to our verdant campus here in the loop of the River Great Ouse, which I was telling our visitors is the third longest river in England. We pride ourselves on being an independent university, Britain's premier independent university, and it's the 40th anniversary of our Royal Charter next year, and then the 50th anniversary of the inauguration of the University College at Buckingham 3 years later in 2026. And those of you with long memories, or those of you historically interested, the campus, the University College at Buckingham, was opened by one Margaret Thatcher, who then was, of course, the first female leader of the opposition in 1976. She went on to become the Prime Minister, the first female Prime Minister of the United Kingdom in 1979. And when she resigned, let's put it like that, when she resigned from politics, she became our Chancellor, the figurehead of the university, and we have very close relationship with her. We have many links to Ghana across the university. We have not only have students and alumni, but we also have interests with the Initiative for African Trade and Prosperity. And I know, Your Excellency, you met with the director earlier. We have my own work on educational entrepreneurship through the Vincent Center. I was based in Kaswa for some time on the Winneba Road, the Cape Coast Road. And we have other links being progressed, I believe, in Buxis with security and the army and so on. So it really is wonderful to have you all here. As I said, it's great for you. I'm glad you came, and Medasi. So it's my great pleasure then to introduce Mark Seddon, who is a journalist, who's been working most recently as a journalist in the United Nations General Assembly. And of course, he has his base here in Buckingham as the director for the Center for UN Studies. So Mark, I welcome you to the stage, and I welcome everyone here. Thank you for coming. Mark.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Vice-Chancellor, and a very special welcome to you, Your Excellency, to all of our esteemed guests for the High Commission from Ghana. And welcome to this, the fourth annual lecture at the Centre for United Nations Studies here at the University of Buckingham. We're disappointed, of course, the Vice President can't be with us, but as the Vice-Chancellor just told us, he'll be joining us very shortly. And also, hopefully, if there is some time at the end, to take a few of your questions, so we'll be doing that. I know that he's pretty disappointed not to be here. The President had to embark on travels outside the country, which means the Vice President must remain. But you're here, that's the main thing, and we're here at the Vincent Center. And also a welcome to all of those who are watching this via live stream. And just actually, before we start, I have just a few special thank yous, because none of this would have happened without our dear friend, Kwasi, Dr. Kwasi. Where are you? Anyway, there we are. This is down to Dr. Kwasi Nyambati, another former alumnus of this, alumni of this university, along with the Vice President. And I'd also like to mention university colleagues, Lucy Stanislaus and her team, and also Tino, Robin, Mike, Roger, colleagues, everybody who's helped in IT and everywhere else to make this event happen today. Just a quick background about the Center for United Nations Studies. It was officially opened by the President of the UN General Assembly, a former Foreign Minister for Ecuador, Maria Fernanda Espinosa, in July 2018. And although we had been taking students to do an MA degree in UN and diplomatic studies a year before. So this is the first Centre for UN Studies in the country. De Montfort University at Leicester is engaged in UN-related work around Sustainable Development Goals, but this is the first Centre for UN Studies. And really, none of this would have happened without the inspiration of the former Vice-Chancellor, Sir Anthony Selden, and my great colleague, Dr. Paul Graham. Last year, our guest speaker, this is, by the way, this is the first event we've had where everybody's been able to get together and to meet and to mingle. So that's a fantastic thing, because last year the event was an online event, and we were joined by our guest, the UN Secretary General, former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and the previous year from the former President of the UN General Assembly, His Excellency Mr. Tijani Mohammed Bande of Nigeria. My background is as a former speechwriter, as James was saying, for the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. I also worked for the former President of the General Assembly, Maria Fernanda Espinosa, and I worked for Gordon Brown when he was a UN Special Envoy. But I came to the UN really as a journalist from Al Jazeera. When Al Jazeera first set up, I was their first UN correspondent. And far more interesting and important than that was that Kofi Annan was Secretary General of the United Nations. Ghana's one of Ghana's greatest sons, without a shadow of a doubt. And also, of course, one of the best United Nations Secretary Generals. By common consent, common view, that is, he set a very, very high benchmark. And he was so respected, actually. I mean, years later, I would jump into a cab in New York, a yellow cab, and the driver would say, "So what do you do?" I said, "Well, I work at the United Nations." And he'd say, "Well, how is Kofi Annan getting on?" I said, "He retired 5 years ago." So you see, he had a connection. He had a very special connection, and he was much loved. So when he sadly passed away in 2018, it fell to me to prepare some remarks for the President of the General Assembly, but also to enlist the speech-making skills of one of his closest aides at the United Nations, the late Edward Mortimer, which some of you may remember from Ghana, who is a great supporter of Kofi Annan, a great enthusiast also for what we are trying to do here at the University of Buckingham. And I just wanted to say something about Ghana as well, because Ghana plays a very, very active and important role within the United Nations. And it's worth pointing out that Ghanaian men and women have served as United Nations peacekeepers since the early 1970s. Ghanaian peacemakers participate in operations that are stretched from the Sinai right across the African continent. And Ghana is now among the top 10 contributors to UN peacekeeping, with nearly 3,000 personnel serving, and I think in some 8 missions. And so we're particularly interested, I think, here at the university to develop links with the Kofi Annan Centre and to continue to build links with Ghana and its institutions. Now, before we hear directly from His Excellency in Ghana, we've got 3 special video messages to mark this event, and we're going to begin with Lord Mark Malloch Brown. Mark Malloch Brown is the chairman of the Centre of the UN Studies, and he served as UN Deputy Secretary General throughout Kofi Annan's tenure. And we'll also hear from the first of 2 British members of Parliament of Ghanaian heritage, one who has actually become the Shadow Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury, a position I didn't know existed, but anyway, she holds it. It's an important one, and she could well be in government one day. And she is sending us a message. Unfortunately, Parliament is sitting today, otherwise they would be with us in person. And also finally, from our local Member of Parliament, who I know did want to be here today, couldn't make it because of parliamentary business, Greg Smith. But anyway, we're delighted that they have sent us messages, and we're delighted to have everybody here. I hope you're going to enjoy today's events. And I would just like to begin, I think, with the message from Lord Mark Malloch Brown.
Good afternoon, dear friends and colleagues, and particularly Your Excellency, the Vice President of Ghana, Dr. Bawumia, to James Tooley, the Vice Chancellor of the University, and to my dear friend Mark Seddon, the Director of the Centre for UN Studies. It's a pleasure to join you, and I apologize for only doing this by video. It's because I'm on the other side of the Atlantic, where I just recently was lucky enough to share a platform with Ghana's Finance Minister, Mr. Vice President, at the spring meetings of the World Bank IMF, where we had a chance to raise together the issues of the great inequities at the moment in the global financial system. Ghana, where you are part of an extraordinarily important government, has been a leader in Africa, not just now on issues of economic development, but over many years around issues of the UN, such as peacekeeping, where the Kofi Annan School in Ghana is devoted to the training of peacekeepers. So Ghana's involvement in the UN, and most notably, of course, that of the Secretary General, who I served as his deputy and before that as administrator of UNDP, has been a legendary one. And I love to tell Ghanaian friends, and indeed observe this in Africa at the time of Kofi's untimely departing, that I hope in my next life I could be born a Ghanaian, because the quality of leadership and decency and sheer graciousness and good manners that Ghana has brought to the world and to its region and continent is something I think we all admire, and are so quintessentially the values of the UN, of team building and collaboration, of finding consensus, of staying focused on the great problems of humankind and finding solutions to them. So I salute you, Mr. Vice President, as you prepare to take the lectern to deliver a lecture at what I know is for you a trip down memory lane as a graduate of this university. And to all those who listen to you, and who I hope will share some of that Ghanaian inspiration that saw me through a long UN and multilateral career.
Hello, my name is Abela Apongasari. I'm a Member of Parliament for Erith and Thamesmead, and also the Shadow Exchequer Secretary to Treasury. I just want to say hello to everybody from the University of Buckingham. I'm delighted to be speaking to all of you today. I see that you've got a packed programme which has been organised from the university, and I think that you'll get a lot out of it. I also want to say a special hello to the Vice President of Ghana, Akwaba. Very good to see you here in the UK. I also want to say a bit about me. I am of Ghanaian descent. I think the relationship between Ghana and UK is important, and I am so glad to see the Vice President, who I believe is an alumni of this university, here talking about the work that Ghana is doing. And I look forward to working with all of you. And I hope the rest of the session goes well today. Goodbye.
Good evening. Due to the House of Commons sitting, I'm so sorry that I can't be with you in person at the university today. But as the Member of Parliament for Buckingham, I am so proud to have the university in the constituency, an institution that in my view is world-beating and dynamic and has an enormous role to play in global Britain. And it's fantastic to welcome the Vice President of Ghana to Buckingham this evening. I look forward to listening to the speech later on from the recording, and I hope that the United Kingdom and Ghana's relationship can go from strength to strength. Last year we had the Trade Partnership Agreement worth £1.2 billion in trade between our two nations. We need to go further than that. We need to get rid of the barriers. We need to go the extra mile to ensure our two countries have a strong relationship together on the basis of good trade and good cultural links. So welcome to Buckingham. I look forward to listening to everything that's said this evening, and hopefully to be able to be back with you in person as soon as possible.
Well, I'm hoping that His Excellency the Vice President will be able to see us and hear us. I'd just like to thank him on behalf of us all for making time today to join us from Accra. You're very welcome. I hope we will see you very shortly on the screen. And I'm going to hand over. Also, hopefully, the Vice President will be able to take some questions at the end. Excellency, I think we're just about to have you join us. I saw the vice. There he is. Aha. Hey. There we are. There we are. Fantastic. Fantastic.
Thank you very much. Do I take it that I can proceed? Thank you. Professor James Tooley, Vice Chancellor of the University of Buckingham, Your Excellency Papa Owusu Ankoma, High Commissioner of Ghana to the United Kingdom and Ireland, Lord Mark Malloch Brown, former UN Deputy General Secretary, Honorable Greg Smith, Member of Parliament for Buckingham, Honorable Margaret Gately, Mayor of Buckingham, the Right Honorable Abena Pongasari, MP, and Shadow Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury. And we've just listened to video messages from all these members of Parliament who couldn't be here. Right Honorable, Mr. Mark Seddon, Director of the Center for UN Studies, members of faculty, students, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by expressing my appreciation to the management of the university and the Center for UN Studies for inviting me to deliver the 4th Annual Center for United Nations Studies lecture on the theme, Ghana's role in shaping Africa's economic transformation through digitalization and strengthened relations with the UK. Unfortunately, due to circumstances beyond my control, I could not be with you in person in Buckingham. Please accept my sincere apologies. Even though we're doing this via Zoom, I feel like I'm back in Buckingham, and I'm thankful for the fond memories and opportunities at Buckingham University, which have become part of my life story. Being the 2nd largest economy in Europe and the 6th largest economy in the world, the UK presents Ghana and Africa a unique opportunity in our quest for economic transformation. For us in Ghana and many African countries, it's an opportunity enshrined in deep historical ties. Scholars and development experts across the world have taken particular interest in the nature and progress of Africa's development, especially after the attainment of independence from colonial rule. The renowned Kenyan-American political scientist, Ali Mazrui, addressed the challenge of Africa's fragmentation and its attendant development problems in his 1979 Reith Lectures on the Paradoxes of the African Condition, arguing in his first paradox that Africa occupies a central position on the world map, yet remains the most marginalized continent in terms of development, notwithstanding its vast land and mineral and natural resources. There has been no shortage of diagnosis about why this is the case. Indeed, despite being the world's fastest growing continent in the last decade, Africa's development is still saddled with governance problems. Coup d'etats have recently taken place in Mali, Burkina Faso, Chad, Guinea, and the Sudan, in an apparent reversal of the democratic march of the African continent. Other challenges include the structural dependence on the export of primary commodities, which face decline in terms of trade, corruption, poor domestic revenue mobilization, debt and sustainability, low mechanized production capability, and small economies due to the relatively small sizes of most countries, and low trade between African countries. Ladies and gentlemen, since independence, African leaders have taken measures to address some of these bottlenecks to development, mainly through the mechanisms of the Organization of African Unity and now the African Union. I'm happy to say that progress has been made over the years in addressing some of the problems. The signing of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement in Kigali, Rwanda in March 2018 was a bold step by African leaders to expedite economic development and achieve prosperity for our growing populations. Historically, playing a quintessential role in shaping the African philosophical, intellectual, and developmental agenda, Ghana once again played a leading role in establishing the African Free Trade Continental Agreement. Therefore, it did not come to us as a surprise when Ghana was chosen to host the Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat. Scholars and policymakers have predicted that the AFCFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Area, is a game changer for Africa's development as it creates leverage over the decades-long developmental challenges. Yet, at the same time, we acknowledge the acceleration of Africa's economic transformation could be achieved through strategic use of digitalization and mutually beneficial external partnerships. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa missed the agricultural revolution and also missed the industrial revolution. My view is that fundamentally, the systems underpinning the economies of most African countries are not systems that can transform our economies and make them globally competitive. The fourth industrial revolution, which is a digital revolution, is upon us, and Africa cannot afford to miss it. There is a growing body of empirical evidence that illustrates the capacity of digital technology to create jobs, significantly boost productivity, increase income, and support wealth creation. For example, the World Economic Forum's Global Information Report estimates that an increase of 10% of a country's digitalization score fuels a 0.75% growth in GDP per capita. It is therefore forward, countries that fail to digitalize their economies are likely to be uncompetitive in the emerging global digital revolution. Ladies and gentlemen, the first thing to note in talking about the digital revolution is that it is a data revolution. The Economist magazine put it in this way in 2017, and I quote, "The world's most resource is no longer oil, but data," end quote. Data is as important in this fourth industrial revolution as oil discoveries were for countries decades ago. Data is the basic requirement for participation in the digital revolution, but it was clear that systems underpinning the operation of African economies were not designed for a data-driven economy. What is the nature of the systems that have been underpinning many African countries' economies? Firstly, citizens and residents cannot be uniquely identified. You don't have unique identity for many of our citizens and residents. In fact, it is possible to be born in many African countries, live a full life, die, and be buried, and there would be no trace of you on any documentation that you ever lived in and died in these countries. Secondly, there is also the inefficiency in this system and corruption in the delivery of public services. Public services are so important, and you need efficiency in the delivery of them. In the day-to-day interaction of Africans, whether in applying for a driver's license, passport, and any form of government permit or license at the local or national level, corruption has been so ingrained that bribe giving and taking are often tolerated to the point of being considered as normal behavior. Thirdly, many countries lack a functional national property address system. And as we all know, no modern economy can function without an address system. And we normally take this for granted in many advanced economies. But in many of our African economies, it isn't the case. Fourthly, there is the existence of a large informal sector and the dominance of cash payment. And this has meant, the large informal sector has meant financial exclusion. Over 60% of the adult population of many of our countries have no bank accounts and therefore are not included in the financial systems. And that, of course, has a lot of implications on savings, financial savings, and so on. Sixthly, our government databases are largely manual and are not integrated. Our databases are sitting in silos and are accessed largely manually. There is also the difficulty of collecting taxes for development. Indeed, the vast majority of our populations do not file to pay taxes. And when they don't do, because the identity system is not very robust, when they do so, there's no way of finding out in many countries who has filed or who hasn't filed taxes. We also have inefficiency in the delivery of health services, medicines, vaccines, blood, and access to hospitals. Many of the records are manual records. And so it really makes it difficult in many countries to access health services. And so these elements that I have just enumerated and underpin the systems in operation in many African countries. So how prepared is Africa to compete in the emerging global digital revolution? Have we got in place the key pillars that would enable our economies participate in the digital revolution? Is the system we have fit for purpose? All the challenges, ladies and gentlemen, I've described so far are symptomatic of a disconnect between government machinery on the one hand and the lives of ordinary Africans on the other. The systems that are in operation frustrate rather than help ordinary people. So many people are excluded from the system. The question to ask is, why is it that after over 60 years of independence in Africa, After all the years of our IMF and World Bank programs, after all the foreign aid and development assistance, the system has remained basically the same, or in some cases has gotten worse. In 2010, 11 years or so ago, and 7 years before I became Vice President of Ghana, I addressed this issue in the conclusions of a book I wrote on monetary policy and financial sector reform in Africa. I noted in this book that the international development is a very competitive game. But unlike the game of football, where the rules are clearly defined for all participants, not all rules of the international development game are written down. Putting in place a unique identification number for citizens, having a unique address system, making sure there is financial inclusion, are just some of the key unwritten rules for efficient economic development. Ladies and gentlemen, the focus of economic management by successive governments since independence in Africa has been on crisis management as a result of factors such as the collapse in commodity prices, increase in oil prices, debt unsustainability, political instability, macroeconomic instability, and so on. Governments have by and large not focused on the underlying system that underpins economic activities. So I concluded in the book that I just talked about, amongst others, that digitalization was the path to modernizing and transforming African economies. The goal of our government in Ghana, upon assumption of office in 2017, was to quickly transform our economy by leveraging on technological innovations as a means to leapfrog the development process, overcome legacy problems, and improve both economic and public sector governance. This is why digitalization has been a major area of focus for our government. The reality is that in this era of the fourth industrial revolution, if you don't digitalize, you will not have much of an economy, period. Indeed, the World Bank president, David Malpass, at the G20 summit last year stated, and I quote, that without digitalization, we won't be able to reap the full benefits of human progress, end quote. This statement by David Malpass is a validation of why Ghana has rightly focused on digitalization, amongst others, in the last 5 years. Our strategy since 2017 has been to build a new system through digital transformation. So what are the elements of this new system for digital transformation? We set out to build a system with unique identification numbers for the population, a system with addresses for all properties and locations, a system that is transparent and promotes accountability, discipline, and trustworthiness, a system that is inclusive and not based on who you know, a system that provides efficient public services delivery and tackles corruption, a system that improves efficiency in the health and education sectors, and a system that provides financial inclusion and a cash-light economy. Last but not the least, a system that enhances domestic revenue mobilization. So, ladies and gentlemen, what has Ghana's experience with digitalization been, and what are the lessons for Africa? In 2017, when our new government was sworn in under the leadership of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, we realized that whilst Ghana's digital journey had started decades ago, progress was slow. There was the need for a major executive buy-in to build a transformational digital ecosystem. While a considerable amount of regulatory framework was already in place to underpin the digital ecosystem, particularly for financial inclusion and national identification, implementation of the actual systems was lagging behind considerably. For example, Ghana's Payment System Act was passed in 2003 in response to the need to develop non-cash payment products and clearing systems in order to reduce overdependence on cash payments in the economy. The enhanced work of mobile money interoperability was achieved just a few years ago under our government. Another example is the National Identification Project. As far back as 1973, Ghana issued national identification cards to citizens in certain border regions. The project stalled due to logistical and technical challenges, and the project was revisited in 1987 and 2001. Subsequently, in 2006, the Act to establish a National Identification Authority was passed. As I go on, I will discuss how we have fully implemented a successful national identification system, which has been critical to formalizing the economy. I will now come to how we have used digitization to solve various problems in Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, the first thing to note when talking about digitalization is that it is a data revolution, as I have stated. Data is the basic requirement for participation in the fourth industrial revolution. But it was clear that the system underpinning the operation of Ghana's economy was not designed for a data-driven economy. Therefore, we set off on our digitization journey from the basics, getting the data right. We launched 2 projects, one to build a database to capture the identity of people, that is the Ghana Card project, and the other to build a property address system. This in the UK is similar to having the national insurance card, which gives an identity to everybody and an address system. With close collaboration with the West African Sub-Regional Group, about 15.9 million people, over half of the Ghanaian population, have been enrolled on the Ghana card and have been given unique ID numbers. And this Ghana card also doubles as an ECOWAS ID card and an e-passport. To solve the problem of the lack of a working address system in Ghana, a problem we've lived with since independence, we have leveraged on GPS technology to implement a digital address system for Ghana. So in Ghana today, every square inch of land or water has a unique digital address. And this is what we are using as an address system. The successful implementation of Ghana's digital address system provides a platform for enhanced e-commerce, financial access, crime control, and public safety. With the Ghana card successfully implemented, we are now embarking on an integrated national database system which will see all records of a person integrated in one single database. For example, all SIM card for your telephone, all SIM card registrations, driver's license, national health insurance, tax identification, births and deaths records, social security, bank accounts, and all other public records are being integrated into the National Identification Authority database, and which would be accessible on the Ghana card, the national ID card. Indeed, starting later this year, it is envisaged that every newborn child will, within a few months of birth, get a Ghana card number, a unique ID, even though the actual card will be issued when the child is grown and their biometrics are fully formed after the age of 6. It was possible for a child to be born, grow up, die, and old age, and there was no record of the person. But now we can solve this situation with the Ghana card, and government will have visibility on the data across. Ladies and gentlemen, digitalization and integration of the databases will, in most part, deal with the governance issues, corruption, and service delivery inefficiencies affecting the economic transformation of the country. Our approach to improving the delivery of public services is to minimize human contact as much as possible. Therefore, we embarked on an aggressive digitalization of service delivery processes across many public institutions with coordination from my office. I will proceed to outline some of these digitalized services. Ladies and gentlemen, a major source of revenue for the government are our national ports. Previously, the bureaucracy in clearing goods at Ghana's ports involved a lot of paperwork and used to be largely manual. This caused delays, corruption, inefficiencies, frustration, and loss of revenue to the government. The introduction of a paperless port system has reduced the layers and simplified the process, reducing the cost and time needed to clear goods and the avenues for corruption. Digitalizing the port's processes has increased efficiencies and revenue mobilization. Ladies and gentlemen, there are many other important government services that have seen significant boosts in efficiency and revenue generation through our digitalization agenda, and I mentioned a few briefly. With digitalization, the acquisition of Ghanaian passports has become much easier, convenient, and efficient. People can now apply for passports from the comfort of their homes and also have them delivered at their home by courier. This has led to a rapid increase in the number of applications and revenue. As of 2017, for example, the Passport Office processed a total of 16,000 applications and had revenue for that year of 1.1 million Ghana cedis. While in 2021, following digitization, they had applications of 498,000 passport applications which were processed, and the revenue had increased from 1.1 million Ghana cedis to 56.7 million Ghana cedis. So it's a major increase. With digitalization, acquisition of driver's licenses and motor vehicle registration in 2019, we experienced a significant increase in services by 109% increase in 2020. The customer now saves as much as 200% on the cost of vehicle services and 264% on driver's licenses services. Government has also generated average revenue of 71.5 million Ghana cedis, which was generated in the years 2013 to 2016 prior to digitalization. And this now compares to 168 million Ghana cedis after digitalization. And so this is the average annual. So we are seeing an increase from 78 to 164, which is quite significant. Again, with digitalization of our motor insurance in Ghana, All insurance policies, which now have key security features, have been synchronized to a national database, which can be accessed simply with any mobile phone by the insured, by the police, and by the public by dialing a simple USSD code. Following the digitalization of motor insurance, the value of the business again has increased by fourfold since 2017. In education, scholarship candidates can now make applications from the comfort of their homes, take an aptitude test, and be interviewed in their own districts because the services of the Scholarship Secretariat has been digitalized. And so applicants no longer have to travel all the way to the capital, Accra, to apply. Even sporting games have not been left out. And the Ghana Football Association recently piloted an e-ticketing system for the recent World Cup qualifying match between Ghana and Nigeria. People who wanted to buy tickets could do so on the mobile phone. There was no need to waste time queuing for tickets. It was a successful pilot and yielded the highest ever revenue for a football match in the history of Ghana. Now, this tells you that previously the manual system, government and the sports clubs were losing a lot of revenue. And this system is now being rolled out to all major stadia in Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, to make it easy to access government services, government launched the Ghana.gov portal. The Ghana.gov portal is a one-stop shop for accessing government services. And this means that people in and outside Ghana can apply for and obtain any government service online through the Ghana.gov platform, with all payments going directly into the government account. And so you are able to save a lot and reduce corruption through cash payments. Ladies and gentlemen, financial exclusion has been a major problem in Ghana and in Africa for decades. The research shows that the use of mobile technologies and mobile internet enhanced financial services are growing faster in Africa than in any other continent. What we needed to put in place was a digitalized system to facilitate these forms of informal banking and other financial services using mobile technologies. Mobile money interoperability came in handy. Ghana has full interoperability, the first country in Africa to have this full interoperability, making it possible to transfer money seamlessly across different mobile money providers and between bank accounts and mobile wallets. That is really the key feature of Ghana's interoperability, the ability to transfer money between a mobile wallet and the bank account. This is the first in Africa. We are the first in Africa to do so. But by doing so, we've had major implications. Because of mobile money interoperability, you can transfer money from a customer of one mobile money service provider to a customer of another mobile money service provider, and also make payments from your mobile money wallet into any bank account. And you can receive payments from any bank account into your mobile money account. You can also receive remittances from abroad directly onto your mobile money account. Because of mobile money, because the mobile money account and the mobile money interoperability performs just like a bank account, over 90% of adult Ghanaians now have bank accounts or mobile money accounts that function like bank accounts. And this means that Ghana, through digitalization, has solved the problem of financial exclusion. We have practically solved this, and it is a major, major milestone for Ghana. This effectively makes Ghana one of the few countries in Africa and other developing countries to achieve this type of interoperability, as I have said. And in fact, in this area, Ghana is way ahead of most countries globally. And the data shows that because of mobile money interoperability, Ghana is the fastest growing mobile money market in Africa. Following mobile money interoperability, the total cumulative value of mobile money transactions increased from 78 billion before interoperability annually, Ghana cedis, to 978 billion, the equivalent of $140 billion just last year. We've seen a 12-fold increase in mobile money transactions as a result of the implementation of mobile money interoperability. Ladies and gentlemen, we've also implemented a universal QR code payment system. It's universal because it's for both mobile wallets and bank accounts. Again, Ghana is the first country in Africa to implement a universal QR code payment system. The digital payments infrastructure that we have put in place is boosting e-commerce in Ghana. Businesses are booming over Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and so on. And many people who cannot afford to rent or build shops are able to do business on the internet at little cost, with deliveries held by the digital address system and payments using mobile money interoperability. The Central Bank of Ghana is currently piloting the ECD, a central bank digital currency, to promote diverse digital payments while ensuring a secure and robust payment infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, Ghana, in the area of domestic revenue mobilization, Ghana has a major challenge in domestic revenue mobilization. The tax to GDP ratio is about 14%, compared to 27% for South Africa and 34% for the advanced OECD countries. Most adults are outside the tax net and compliance is very low. At the beginning of 2017, only 4% of the adult population of Ghana had tax identification numbers. Broadening the tax net was therefore imperative for us. To increase the number of people with tax identification numbers, we took the decision to designate the Ghana card number, this national ID card number, as the tax identification number. In doing this, we have significantly increased the percentage of adults with tax identification numbers from 4% in 2017 to 85% in 2022. In terms of revenue losses, integrating the databases of different government institutions is allowing us to successfully weed out ghost names in the government payroll and other payment platforms. For example, a biometric audit of the National Service Scheme payroll alone found 14,000 ghost workers and saved the country some 112 million Ghana cedis annually, approximately $15 million annually for just one institution. We have also embarked on connecting all health facilities to one digital platform. So far, 36 health facilities in the country's central region have been connected to the digital platform on a pilot scheme, and the process for other hospitals is ongoing, and we expect this to be completed soon. So if you are referred, the purpose of this interconnection that we are doing is that if you are referred from one hospital as a patient in one part of the country to another, you will not need to carry a folder. All your records will be monitored by the medical personnel in the hospitals when you arrive, and patients will only have one digital folder wherever they go. Again, following digitalization, the renewal of national health insurance registration is now by mobile phone, and this has eliminated all bottlenecks and improved access to healthcare by those who need the services most. This has led to an increase in renewals by 70%, while new registrations have also increased by 41% per annum. And digitalization is helping to stamp out corruption and inefficiencies in the health service as well. Ladies and gentlemen, hospitals and clinics in remote and largely rural communities in Ghana have difficulty getting medical supplies, especially in times of emergencies involving, for example, snake bites, childbirth, blood supplies, vaccines, floods, and so on. To address this problem, Ghana partnered with Zipline, the world's largest automated on-demand delivery service for medical supplies. And Ghana is now the second country in Africa after Rwanda to implement the delivery of medical supplies to remote areas through drones. The medical drones have made millions of deliveries of medicines, blood, and vaccines to very remote parts of Ghana and have saved many lives and continue to save lives on a daily basis. I should add that Ghana currently has the largest medical drone delivery service in the world. We have now taken leadership in this area in the world, the world's largest medical drone delivery service. And I'm happy to say that 100% of the medical drone delivery centers are manned by young, talented Ghanaians. We have completed work, ladies and gentlemen, on a digital platform for all pharmacies in Ghana. And a pilot scheme of 45 pharmacies has been completed. And basically, the National Electronic Pharmacy Platform that we have completed the work on will offer the opportunity to everyone through a mobile phone to upload their prescriptions and find out the closest pharmacy to them to get the prescribed medicine. So when you upload your prescription on this system, all the pharmacies within a 10-kilometer radius will appear, and you will be able to find out who has the medicines. You can also compare the prices for the same drug so that they can buy from the lowest price pharmacies. Customers will also be able to order the drug and pay for it on the phone through mobile money and other channels. And the medicines can then be delivered to the customers at home through a courier service provider once you provide your digital address. The National Electronic Pharmacy Platform will be formally launched. I'll perform the launch in the next few weeks and will make Ghana one of the only a few countries in the world with a national scale e-pharmacy. As a government, we are acutely aware of the myriad of challenges around building a digital economy. The priority we give to the digital economy explains why we have the Ministry of Communication and Digitalization. There are regulations, institutions, and systems we have put in place to help mitigate the attendant risks. For example, the Data Protection Act recently passed in 2018, and which a Data Protection Commission is established, is there to protect individuals' privacy and personal data. And Ghana's Cybersecurity Authority has been established under the Cybersecurity Act 2020 to regulate cybersecurity activities. Ladies and gentlemen, the average rate of GDP growth in Ghana for the period 2017 to 2021, which is including the COVID-19 year of 2020. This average rate of growth in these 5 years was 5.3%. In per capita terms, the GDP per capita has continued to increase, and by about 60% since 2016. In the context of sub-Saharan Africa, GDP growth in Ghana has consistently outpaced average GDP growth in sub-Saharan Africa since 2017. And even in 2020, when, because of COVID-19, sub-Saharan Africa recorded negative growth on average, Ghana was one of the few countries with positive growth. While growth in Ghana averaged 5.3% from 2017 to 2021, the sub-Saharan African average for the same period was 2.3%, and GDP growth in Ghana was therefore more than double the sub-Saharan African average. And we believe we survived better during the COVID because of our digitized systems, partly, which allowed people to transact online. So what are the lessons for Africa? Ladies and gentlemen, in January 2022, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System was launched at the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat in Accra. This system is one of 5 pillars supporting effective implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Working closely with African central banks, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System aims to facilitate the efficient flow of capital securely across African borders, minimizing risk and contributing to financial integration across countries. All forms of transactions, including shopping, transfers, salaries, stock trades, and all high-value transactions are supported by the real-time infrastructure provided by the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. In my view, and with the experience of Ghana, the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System offers a rare opportunity to integrate Africa's financial sector to ensure seamless trading under the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. This is a giant step towards digitalizing payments and settlements across Africa. In the long run, if successfully implemented, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System promises to be a major facilitator of digitalized financial and economic structures in Africa. Digitalization of finance and economies in Africa are a sine qua non of transforming our economies. As a member of a government that has chalked so much success in digitalization and financial inclusion within a period of 5 years, I can attest to the challenges and hurdles that need to be overcome. But with commitment and political will, Ghana has demonstrated that African leaders can achieve prosperity for their people through digitalization. Ghana and Africa-UK relations. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to go back to Ali Mazuri's first paradox on the African condition. And I quote, geographically, Africa is the most central of all continents, but politically and militarily, it is probably the most marginal, end quote. Africa is the second largest continent, second only to Asia in population and landmass, with a population of over 1.2 billion on a total land area of almost 30 million square kilometers. Africa has a median age of 19.7. We are a very young continent. With the inception of the African Continental Free Trade Area, which has a combined GDP of $3 trillion and a market of 1.2 billion people, the continent may have been marginalized in the past, but it will not be marginalized in the future. Nevertheless, the success of the African story will depend on the nature of partnerships Africa forges with its external partners. The UK has a major role to play. The UK's long-standing historical ties with Africa, an impressive development trajectory, puts it in a unique position to partner Ghana and other African countries for strategic development in economic transformation, trade and investment, technical cooperation, and boosting intra-regional trade. I'll focus on 2 core sectors, agriculture and industrialization. It is remarkable to note that the UK has one of the most advanced mechanized agricultural sectors in the world, with just 2% of the workforce producing about 60% of the population's food needs. The good news is that Africa has vast fertile land suitable for agriculture. It has human resources and all it takes to be the world's food basket. Ironically, Africa remains the most malnourished region in the world. What it means is that there is an untapped opportunity for Africa-UK relations. This is a partnership that will take advantage of the 1.2 billion market being created by the AFCFTA and help Africa deal with its chronic malnutrition and farming that will yield prosperity for both African and British farmers. Ladies and gentlemen, secondly, Africa's quest for industrialization has seen very slow progress over the decades. However, with the creation of the continental market, there's a new impetus to revitalize industries on the continent. In Ghana, we have the ambitious one district, one factory policy being rolled out by government. And this policy seeks to either revamp or build new factories in each district across the country. And this is a private sector driven initiative, and we have been able to facilitate the establishment of over 100 factories since 2017. Other areas that the UK can partner Ghana and other African countries include mineral processing, oil and gas, tourism, energy, infrastructure, utilities, and finance and health. For us, the commitment of to Ghana-UK relations has never been in doubt and has seen recent boosts. And this is manifest in the establishment of the UK-Ghana Business Council in October 2018 as a high-level forum to promote bilateral relations and strategic partnerships between the private sectors of Ghana and the UK for trade and investment. And I must say, this has been one of our most successful partnerships since we came into government in 2017. The results have been phenomenal in terms of what we've been able to do with the UK-Ghana Business Council entity. Our commercial relations received a further boost on 2nd March 2021 when our two countries, the UK and Ghana, signed the Interim Trade Partnership Agreement seeking to provide duty-free and quota-free UK market access for Ghana exporters and the 80% asymmetrical progressive preferential tariff reductions for British exporters. While we know that similar relations exist between the UK and individual African countries, we hope that the same relations with continental institutions will be cemented as well. Signs of engagement in this direction are evident as the first ever UK-Africa Investment Summit was held in January 2020 to lay the foundation for new partnerships between the UK and Africa on trade and investment. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, within the last 45 minutes or so, I have put the challenges to Africa's economic transformation in context and addressed the new direction in our quest to overcome the myriad of challenges affecting our quest to transform our economies. I've outlined some of the ways Ghana has made progress in using digitalization to achieve economic transformation and the lessons therein for Africa's own transformation. Africa can leapfrog many advanced economies using digitalization because as a continent, we are not burdened by legacy systems. In many advanced nations, making these changes comes with a lot of cost. But because we don't have legacy systems in Africa, we're able to adopt and adapt digitalization in full speed. It is also important, I must say, a major lesson from Ghana's experience. It is also important to note that Ghana's digitalization has been a private sector-driven effort in partnership with the public sector. We deliberately understand that for systems to work, those running the systems must have an incentive to make the systems work. So we deliberately have had the private sector in charge of the systems. Once the systems are working, they get revenue, they get paid a share of the revenues that come out from the systems working, from the taxes that we are generating and so on. And so that has been a major lesson. And I believe that it is for African countries to also follow, because it is always very difficult within the context of the public sector to implement these far-reaching reforms, because you are dealing with the status quo or changing the status quo. And there are many interests which don't want that status quo changed. So if you put the responsibility for the transformation of the status quo in the hands of people who are definitely not interested in seeing that transformation, you are not going to make progress. But once you bring in the private sector and provide them an incentive to make the systems work, then you will see progress. And this is what Ghana's experience has been. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I've touched on just a fraction of the many mutually beneficial opportunities that exist in a deepened UK-Ghana, UK-Africa relations. I do hope that in future, we will see even deeper UK-Ghana and UK-Africa relations. I really want to thank you very much for your attention. I will sit down and take some questions and we can have a discussion. Thank you very much for your attention.
So His Excellency is going to join us again very, very shortly to take a few questions. What I propose to do, if that's all right, so that he can hear, is if you've got a question, please let me know and ask it, and then I will then put it on your behalf directly to him. I think we've probably got time for about half a dozen questions, so please do get them ready. Excellency, thank you first of all, very much indeed for that clarion call, and also for explaining to us the extraordinary digital advances that have been made in Ghana and also right across Africa. For what it's worth, some years ago, I went with the Secretary General to Nairobi, where he was able to see mobile phone technology and how it was liberating ordinary people and enabling them to use their banks and to trade much more easily. We have got a few questions, if that's all right for you, sir.
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much. And in fact, I'm going to just, if I may, take the privilege of asking the first one, which is really, I suppose, well, two, if I may. One is the adaptability of people to this very fast technological change. How equipped are people to move into this new data revolution? And the second question, which is relating to the second part of your lecture about Britain and Ghana relations, but more broadly, how do you think the international architecture helps Ghana and the global South? And also, this is an international architecture, as you know, dating back to the end of the Second World War. But in particular, also, how do you think that with issues around sustainable development and climate change and all the rest of it, the global South's agenda can be pushed through? So that's a question from me, but we'll take questions from all of you very shortly.
Thank you very much, Vice Chancellor. I appreciate. Is that Mark or is this
It's
James?
Mark, yes, yes, it's me.
Mark. Okay, Mark. Yes, thank you very much, Mark. I think these are two very interesting questions. The issue of adaptability to this fast technological change that we are seeing across many countries, definitely in Ghana. We were also asking ourselves the same question: how quickly can people adapt? But one of the things that you find out quickly when you ask that question is that a lot of it is around the mobile phone. And the mobile usage of the mobile phone is very, very common across the country, from people who have not been to school across to people who are very, very educated, the rural areas and so on. The use of the mobile phone has been very, 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 it's very pervasive. And so a lot of people have really adapted very quickly, because if you say that, for example, the renewal of health insurance, people used to go to sleep for 3 days at district offices just to be able to renew their health insurance. Today, you can sit in the comfort of your home, dial a USSD code, make a payment, and there you go, you have it renewed. So the gains to using the technology are so high that people learn quickly how to use and operate these systems. And we are seeing with the massive increases, for example, passport applications. In 2016, we had about 16,000. Now in 2021, we have 498,000. So a lot more people are able to do this. And also mobile money, as you said, you observed in Kenya, it has been more used by people who have not traditionally had access to bank accounts. There are a lot of poor, a lot of illiterate. They are very, very much more averse and very good at using these new mobile money systems than a lot of people who are very educated. And so we think that the adaptability of people, the evidence is showing that people are able to adapt and seeing the benefits of the technology. It outweighs going to pay a bribe, going to sleep outside an office for days just to perform a function. So we are seeing that, but we are also aware that, of course, there can be challenges, and so people may have to help other people to use these new systems. But by and large, for example, when we introduced the e-ticketing for football games, you saw massive selling of the tickets online, and increase in the number of people who were able to actually enter stadia and so on. So we are quite happy with adaptability. Your second question goes to the issue of the international architecture and how it helps Ghana. Indeed, for us in Ghana, as you know, our position is that we need certain reforms, because for countries in the South, at the time of the end of the Second World War, when this international architecture was put in place, we were not at the table. The architecture was put in place without us. You look at the UN and you look at the nature of the number of the permanent members of the UN and so on. Africa, 1.2 billion people, we don't have a permanent seat, and we should have a permanent seat. The institutions, the Bretton Woods institutions, and the World Bank and the IMF and so on, these were all institutions that were put in place. And so historically, African countries have had a challenge in getting our voices heard historically in all of these institutions. And so one would want to see some reform of the international architecture to take account of the realities of today, because what the situation was in 1945 is so different today. And you will see that a lot of the implications of climate change and the impact of climate change is affecting countries in Africa and many other developing countries so much worse, even though we have not been the polluters. We have not been the sources of this major climate change, but we have, bearing the consequences more drastically than many other countries. And so we need a voice. We need an enhanced voice, and we need a reform of the international architecture that was put in place in 1945, and which is no more working in 2022. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. Take you. Would you let me know your name and your question?
Question is in regards to that. How can Somaliland become an independent state in Africa and also contribute to investments in Africa?
Vice President, this is Zamzam. Her question really is about Somaliland, and if Somaliland can become an independent country and participate in the African Union. What is Ghana's position on Somaliland?
Yes, as I said, I will have to take advice on that. I cannot really give you advice on that. I know that there is still a lot of instability there right now, and we'll have to come back to you on that. I'll see what, I'm not exactly sure what the position is on that. So okay. I'll have to come back on that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It's a pleasure to have listened to your talk. I'm Harin Selhewa, the Dean of the Faculty of Computing Law and Psychology, and an alumnus myself. You rightly said data is the essence for the fourth industrial revolution. But if I may say so, I believe the human capital is equally, if not more important for the fourth industrial revolution and also the fifth one that is coming upon us. Because at the end of the day, it is the people that solve the problems and innovate. Could you tell us what you have done or plan to do to train and upskill in advanced digital skills, your human capital?
Thank you very much. I think this is a very, very important question. And from our perspective in Ghana, that is the issue. I mean, the human capital is so critical in this whole digitalization process. First of all, when we came in, we realized that, you have a lot of talent. It's very clear if you look at the Ghanaian IT sector, there's very talented young people, and you just need to give a lot of people the opportunities. So in terms of human capital, we thought that we should make sure, number one, that people get access to education. One of the problems was that because of the problems of school fees, a lot of people were not getting access to education. So we have made secondary school education free in Ghana. You have about 720 secondary schools. We've also proceeded to provide Wi-Fi in the secondary schools, and we're at least, I think, about 700 or so, if my information is right, so far we have gotten. So we're providing free Wi-Fi so that the students can access information on the internet and so on. And then we are also focusing increasingly on STEM education. We're beginning to really focus on STEM education as well. So there is a recognition that we should build digital skills and make sure that the teachers are in a position to provide and impart that particular knowledge. We have a one teacher, one laptop program where we are provided we're in the process of providing 350,000 laptops to teachers, one teacher, one laptop, so that they are, empowered to be able to teach and to be able to research and so on. So I agree with you that the digital skills and our ability to give the students the skills and to have the capacity across is also going to be key in the successful implementation of the digitalization strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. We'll take you, sir, and then you, sir. If you speak up very loudly, then the Vice President will hopefully be able to hear you, and then I won't have to repeat your question, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for for the diagnostic. I introduce myself. I'm Mohammed Zaibi. I'm Director of Biomedical Research at the University of Buckingham. And I think really I was impressed by the diagnostic, what is going in Africa. I'm North African and French as well. I'm from Tunisia. Now, my question to you is, if you could tell us what African Union, as a country, not only sub-Saharan country, Africa, especially because, should be like a symbiotic relation between North African country and sub-Saharan country to be open to European country. That's the main thing. What especially African Union is doing to be talking as one word, and especially to have that exchange of goods, exchange of person, and this is going through digitalization as well, and as well collaboration between African Union in education, in health, in security, in data protection. All of this, Africa should be talking as one word.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you hear that, sir?
Thank you. I think I got the drift of the question. I think I thank you very much for the question. And you are speaking our language. Essentially, when you look at Africa as a whole, north, south, east, and west, we face very similar challenges. And there are some countries which have gone ahead of others. But if we work together and we follow and cooperate, we are able to do a lot more. And I think the African Union has a lot to do in this area, especially also in the area of digitalization, so that we can have common platforms across, or integrated platforms across the continent, whether it's North Africa or the southern sector of Africa, so that we can do things commonly. One of the interesting things, as I said, last year, I launched the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System. This has been a major bottleneck. The lack of such a system has been a major bottleneck to trade in Africa, because we have about 43 different currencies in Africa. And therefore, trading becomes difficult because you have to go through third-party currencies. Either you're going through the US dollar or the euro or whatever to settle accounts, so that a trader in Nairobi or in Accra, when they want to sell something to someone in Tunisia or Egypt, it becomes difficult for payments. The person who is buying is not able to pay in their local currency. Now, one of the things that we did with the Afri-Exim Bank and with the support of the African Union, with the Afri-Exim Bank and the central banks across Africa, is to come up with a Pan-African payment and settlement system. For me, this is the most important development in African monetary integration since independence. There's nothing bigger that we have done. We've just launched it, but that allows someone who is in Egypt to pay for something that they've imported from Kenya in their local currency. And that settlement will be done between the banks with the support of the Afri-Exim Bank. And this is so new and so transformational that we think that once you have been able to solve this payment matter, then the trade between countries can also help. I think we can also get a lot of cooperation in cybersecurity across the countries. We are facing very, very similar challenges: education, health systems, and so on. And so if we work together, and I think that you will see African Union has to be moving more in this space to get countries to cooperate in these spaces. It's easier to cooperate in the digitalization space, in my opinion, than in many, many areas that we've had difficulty in establishing cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. I think if it's all right with you, if you have still some time for a couple.
Yes.
Thank you very, very much.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
You?
Yes.
But yeah, please.
I was very impressed by the talk on digital advancement.
Stop.
I'm very impressed by the talk on digital advancement. Like every part of me at the moment wishes I was Ghanaian. There's one element though. Is this digital advancement, does it include, is it inclusive of all Ghanaians or just heterosexual Ghanaians, given the controversial anti-LGBT bill? I am the president of the Pride Society, so I have to ask. I feel like that's what
Excellency,
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I've heard the question loud and clear. One of the things, in fact, for us as Ghana, one of our major objectives of the digital revolution is inclusion. In fact, this has been one of my basic, the drivers that is philosophies that's driving the digitization process. Because for the longest time, so many people across the country, rural Ghana, so many people have been excluded from the broader economy, from the broader society. As I said, you could have lived in Ghana, died, buried, and nobody will know you ever were here, and so on. So what we are doing in the digitalization space is to promote inclusiveness. First of all, that you want to make sure everybody has an identity so that we know uniquely who is in Ghana. And there's no issue about it. We are issuing national ID cards for everybody. We want to make sure that everybody, every property has an address system, whether you are living in the inner city areas, whether it's a shack, whether it's a whatever, rural area, wherever you are, you have a digital address. And that is working for everybody. We say everybody should have a bank account. Now we have achieved over 90% of a bank account for everybody in Ghana, of the adults, 90% of bank accounts for all adults in Ghana. That's a phenomenal achievement. You can apply for government purposes, services, just on your computer, or you don't even have to go and apply or personally and go through all the hassle. You apply on your phone or your computer, pay and the service fee, and you get the service. And so I just want to reiterate that we are not, in fact, if you exclude, you will be defeating the very purpose for which you are bringing in all of this transformational digitalization. We want to make sure that we are including the whole population in digitalization. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I think possibly you're the last question, if that's okay. Would you mind standing up so the Vice President can hear you? Thank you.
Good evening, Your Excellency. Thank you so much for your speech. You've talked a lot about Ghana's technological infrastructure developments and how they've eliminated bureaucracy and corruption and increased efficiency of delivery of government services. So I wanted to ask, what technological implementations do you envisage that further seeks to expand the concept of accountability by allowing Ghanaian citizens to have more visibility of government actions and how government funds allocated towards the direct improvement of the citizens' welfare? Sure.
Thank you very much. That's a very, very, very good question. And I think that what we are seeing already, what we are doing is trying to get that accountability. In fact, I gave a speech last week where I said that the best way to deal with corruption in the public sector is through transparency. Transparency, shines a light because corruption is in darkness. So transparency shines the light and everybody can see what is going on. And the most transparent systems that we are putting in place are these digital platforms. For example, when we introduced the football e-ticketing, for example, I could sit in my office and watch the dashboard minute by minute to see how many tickets were being sold. At the end of the ticket sales, we knew exactly how much money was realized. and that was coming in. I can do the same for gold sales, Ghana's gold sales. I can sit in my office and look at how much has been assayed, and I'll know how much sales have happened on a daily basis, on a real-time basis. So it's a very important thing that we are doing. That the digitalization that is happening is really shining a light, and we are getting a lot of accountability. And we will get a lot of accountability. Of course, we are not at the end of the process. We are going to continue to make sure that there is digitization across. We are making sure, for example, which I'll be launching soon, that you can now file your taxes on your mobile phone. You don't have to go and do a long-winded process of filing taxes. And we've redone the tax filing form so that it's very, very simple for even the very uneducated, we are hoping can file taxes. And we want everybody to file taxes, even if you have nothing to pay. In fact, you may be receiving a refund of sorts. We want to do that, but we had to make it very easy. But once you put all of these things on digital platforms, you will get a lot more accountability in the system, and that is what we are working to. Corrupt people hate transparency, and so we want to have more and more transparency, and that digitalization is what is happening, and we get to just continue and deepen it, and it becomes the way of doing business. Once it becomes the way of doing business, then every revenue can be accounted for. We are discouraging the use of cash, for example, in the payment of government services. In fact, it is very, very good to go in this direction, and we are making a lot of progress in that area. Thank you very much.
Excellency, thank you. And I think you've also just started a new campaign for tax refunds, because we all want them here. So, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We have to bring it to an end, but before we do, the Vice Chancellor James Tully would just like to say a few words.
Here.
Good evening, Dr. Bawumia.
Good evening.
It's been so wonderful listening to you. My only regret, of course, is that you're not with us here in person. I think it would have been a really wonderful session, even more wonderful with you here.
Yes.
What year were you in the university? What year were you here? What year did you graduate?
I was here in 1987, 87 to 88.
Okay.
1986 to 88.
86 to 88. So you nearly coincided with my wife, and that would be wonderful for you and share stories.
Okay.
I talked to people about your time here, and the one thing people remarked about you was that you were not interested in politics at all.
That is very true. I was the most apolitical. I never thought I would go into politics.
No. Anyway, that's a great sort of a story of how one.
Thank you.
But it really has been wonderful for us, and it's wonderful for us at the University of Buckingham to see where our people go, and to be as great a figure as you is so wonderful. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.